Okay, you all remember my brother Charles, and I finally got you pinned down because they literally hammer me every week to talk to you about your carnivore diet. Okay,
Okay.
they're so tripped out over it, and it's been years you've been doing it. What you want to give us an idea how long it's been and how you got started?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm imagining they're thinking, who only eats meat? That's the weirdest thing on the planet, right? That's probably why they wanted me on, because they're like, I'm going to see this freak in person. It's only, here's a weird thing. It's just unusual because it's different than what everyone else is doing. If you went back in time about 4.5 years ago and told me I would be doing this, I'd called you completely crazy. So it's totally
Oh, wait,
started
I'm
with,
sorry. Excuse
yeah,
me for interrupting you.
interrupt all you want.
Let's explain what is the carnivore diet. I'm sorry, I haven't
Oh,
even
well, I
explained
mean, yeah. So it's also called zero carb. In fact, when I looked online, that's what I found. I didn't follow it carnivore, and that just seems to be the more modern name for it. So people have been doing this for like 10 years. They started doing zero carb, and now it's called the carnivore diet, and people just know it by that. So it's basically you basically eat animal products only. So if you just imagine the vegan diet, so you take the vegan diet and you do the polar opposite of the vegan diet. So you where they eat vegetables and fruits and things like that and don't eat any meats.
and
You
styrofoam and cardboard.
it's
And,
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, that's but at any point they eat those things.
right.
The carnivores, they only eat meat and animal products. So butter, cheese.
Eggs.
Some people do milk and milk products.
You do eggs.
Eggs,
Yeah.
eggs, and of course meat. So I don't do all of those. I do butter, um, butter and salt. That's my only seasoning is salt, butter, salt, meat, and eggs. And
Butter.
when I say meat and eggs. When I say I used to do cheese, and I didn't like it left a residue on my teeth,
Yeah.
so I stopped.
It's probably
I
the
stopped.
oil that's in it that they.
I don't know. Maybe the milk, like the milk byproducts, right? So there's
Mhm.
still that bit of, like if you take butter and you clarify it, you get ghee. It's the
Yeah.
stuff left behind. That's probably what's sticking to my teeth. Anyway, I'm like, nothing sticks to my teeth now. So I'm like, I just got rid of it. So I don't do that anymore. But there's nothing wrong with it. Different people do different varying levels of carnivore. So there's also that.
Right.
So some people are like, well, I'm 90% carnivore. They want to, sort of like have that little out clause and stuff. And I'm not. I'm like, if this is good for me, then I'm going all in 100%.
Right.
So anyway, going back to your original question, I started. History of me. I don't know how much you remember this. When I was a kid, I had bronchitis,
Yes.
right?
Remember that.
Okay, you remember that? And you remember how it's like the only way I can explain it is like breathing through a straw when you had bronchitis because your bronchial tubes just completely close up. And so I couldn't run all the time. And when they had in the 70s, they had these things called smog alerts for anyone who's younger. They had things called smog alerts, and basically you weren't supposed to go outside and play, run around as a kid. Yeah, we actually got time to run around and play. That's a whole nother video we should do someday. But yeah, because the smog was too bad. And so today is amazing compared to back then. And so for me, I didn't do sports and I didn't do any of those things because it was too painful. Even though I did play at recess, and I also suck at sports, so it no great loss for me.
Yeah.
I never exercised because of that, right? I didn't do exercise, and I always poo-pooed it, right? I got to
Oh, wait,
about
oh, it was pupooted.
I always poo-pooed it, like, exercise. That's for
Oh, got it.
meatheads, right?
Got it. You blew it off.
Blew it off.
Mhm.
So here, fast forward from being a kid to being old, 54, right? I get out of bed and I'm like, one day I got out of bed and I'm like, oh man, what happened? I injured myself in my sleep. I went to bed, I was fine, and I wake up and I feel terrible. I don't know what happened. I feel like somebody beat me up in my sleep. So it was at that moment I'm getting dressed and I'm like having trouble getting my pants on. I'm like, no, because I was sore or something was hurting. I can't even remember the details, but I remember thinking, yeah, I can't keep. I'm just going to get worse. It's not getting any better than this. I thought I've got to do something. And
You know how many
so,
people, wait, stop. You know how many people right this moment in the videos going, oh my gosh, that's me. I know
yeah, of
somebody's doing
course.
that right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, there's nothing special about me.
Right.
Nothing special. That's the other thing. There's nothing special about me here. It's
Mhm.
not like, well, you can do the carnivore diet. No, there's nothing special. I'm not special in any way, shape, or form. I may eat differently, but I'm not special. So things that apply to me probably apply to, millions and maybe probably billions of people on the planet. So probably. Anyway, so my daughter Rachel was she worked out, and I'd been driving her to her workouts and stuff. And so I said to her, yeah, I need to start. And I just started talking about working out and getting into an exercise regime. And she's like, oh, they have this special, Dad. You should come to my work. And I go, I don't want to go to your workout. Who wants to go work out with their dad? Ugh. Yeah, you did dad over. Oh, this is my dad. I mean, she's like, no, I don't care. It's different than when we were kids. Like, we were embarrassed if mom came anywhere, right? She would embarrass us. And so, but the kids today, well, she's not a kid, but you know what I mean? The different generation, they don't mind their parents being around because their parents were always around. So it's just different. And so she's like, no, come on, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should do that. That's all I did. Didn't do anything, right? Typical, right? We all do this. So what happens? Getting down. I had just turned 54, by the way. I was like, end of October. And Rachel says to me, she goes, look, she goes, this thing's gonna expire where you can go for 2 weeks as a trial. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll go. And so I go down to like Walmart and I get sweatpants and I have none of this stuff. And I go and I just buy stuff and I get everything cheap because I'm thinking, this might not work out. Because I had tried in the past to go to gyms and stuff. And then
So you got the ripcord ready to go.
I'm already ready to pull. Right? So I'm like, I ain't spending more than $10 on those pants because I may never wear them again.
Welcome to Walmart.
Yeah. So I go to Walmart, right? So anyway, now today I would never wear those sweatpants. This is just be dying. It's too hot. So I had no clue of what I needed. So I get, all right, this is good enough. It's not street clothes. So I go and I do it. And so you sit down with a nutritionist and she says, oh, let's look at different foods. So things you should eat, things you shouldn't eat. And so she's like, well, you should probably, want to cut these different foods out of your diet. And, things on the list, pasta. And I'm like, I'm never giving up pasta. Like, I mean, that's like flowing through my veins, right? Since we were kids, little, right? We ate pasta all the time, like at least once a week. In fact, before you were born, my mom got
your mom?
Yeah, my mom, who wasn't your mom yet. So it's my mom because you weren't born, right? So anyway, she asked me and Dad, like, what did you want to eat? And we're like, oh, let's have macaroni is what we called it because they're from back east. Let's have macaroni. And she's like, all right. So she did that one day. Next day, what do you guys want to eat? Let's have macaroni. She did 7 days in a row. We never complained, right? When I went on our honeymoon, the cruise line was Sitmar Cruises. I don't know if they still exist, but they were an Italian cruise line. I had pasta every night. Okay, so this woman's sitting here. You should get rid of pasta. I'm like, man, I am not getting rid of pasta. Nope. And mayonnaise, another bad food. And yes, it's bad, but not for the reason she said it was bad.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, I am not giving it mayonnaise, right? Tomato sandwiches, grew up with that. So I'm like, all right, yeah, thank you. But that kind of got me starting to think a little bit, right? And so now I'm doing the exercises and everything, and I had the realization, and I knew this back then that this could happen, because I don't know how I knew this, but I just did, that you can do all this work and you can work out and everything, and I see this people do this all the time and still be fat. You could do all of those exercises and still be fat. So exercising doesn't get rid of the body fat.
I did karate for a year. I didn't lose an inch.
Exactly. And so I thought, I don't want to do all this work because it's hard work. It's a boot camp. So it's sort of like, not as bad as CrossFit, but it's a high intensity interval training. Okay.
Right.
So it's pretty brutal. And, I'm 50 at the time. I was 54. Right. So I'm kind of old. And I'm thinking, I'm doing all that. and I was loving it. I actually enjoyed it. So I thought, well, I'm doing all that. I don't want to undo all that hard work and all the pain I'm going through and just undo it in the kitchen.
Nobody thinks that way. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
That's
I'm
indeed
well, okay.
true.
I'm a freak in that regard.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I thought, okay, I don't want that. So I thought I need to really like buckle down and learn about nutrition, right? And I really want to like optimize if I'm going to do that and I'm liking it and I'm feeling the benefits of it, I don't want to undo it, right? Because like, what's the point? And I wanted to optimize my nutrition. So I just went on a regiment of learning. So that's what started me. So does that help? Does that answer?
Yeah. The next question I have is, how many years we've been doing it? I forgot.
Have I been doing it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so I've been exercising. I'm going to be 59 in October.
Mhm.
So that's what, 5 years. So I've been exercising for 5 years, and I've been improving my diet for almost those 5 years. And it took me about 6 months almost to get to about 6 months to get to carnivore.
So 4.5 years you've been on the carnivore diet.
Yes. And
Okay.
and no, I mean I'm completely like unless somebody at a restaurant like spiked my food, I've never gone off of it.
All right. So one thing I want to bring up that you told me, I said, do you use salt? And you said yes. I said, do you use pepper? And you say,
Oh no, I
no.
don't use pepper.
And I said, why don't you use pepper? And you
because
said,
it's a plant. It
it's a
comes from a
plant.
plant.
And I'm
All
like,
seasoning comes from a plant, except for stuff that comes from rocks. And
right.
salt is a rock, and yeah, so that comes from rocks. Oh, I eat rocks and I eat meat. There you go. I forgot to mention that.
Man. So the thing I want to talk a little personally about some of the side effects on your body, things that have
Okay.
like breath, your bowel,
Yep.
all that. I
Yep.
want to talk about those things that are like people don't even think of, have completely changed.
Right. It's weird. Okay, so I'm gonna get into some personal stuff.
Yeah, if
So
you don't want to hear
just
personal,
warning.
pull the video off.
Skip ahead. Okay, so yeah, breath.
Mhm.
Nothing. Right. I had some gum removed here so that I could clean my teeth better because it was I had problems my
Yes.
whole life,
Right.
and it was starting to get into the bone, and the dentist said, well, we should cut that away. Should have never done that. If I knew what I knew now, I would have never done that.
Right.
I can't remember the last time I brushed my teeth. Okay.
Wait. Hold on. You don't brush your teeth?
I do.
Oh.
But once a week, I'll do a quick brush.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's pause there for a moment. Wow. Let's just absorb that, guys. So do you use toothpaste or water?
Oh, no, I just use water. Because toothpaste has sugar in it. Toothpaste has sugar in it, dude.
It does?
Yeah.
No.
Taste how sweet it is? You can't taste it?
No.
Yep.
Wait, you never told me that. I just learned that right now.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so Jack Jr. does the same thing. He brushes only with water. He's been enough.
And I have a toothbrush. I used to have a, Sonicare because I needed it. And I would floss. I still floss. I would floss, and then I would rinse my mouth with Listerine, that's burning my mouth, wait till like tears are practically coming out of my eyes and spit it out. I had this whole regiment, right? Twice a day to keep my teeth from falling out of my head. Okay. Don't need any of that. Don't
okay,
believe.
so you don't do that. What else has changed?
Body odor, right? Like I used to use deodorant all the time. Had to. If I didn't, I'd be like, oh, Jesus. Oh.
Oh yeah,
like,
I remember you as a teenager, dude.
Right. So, and I'd never changed, right? Nope, because that came from the food I was eating. I didn't realize it.
Really?
I was eating, yes. And so that went away. I've literally, people like, oh, I was buying steak all the time expensive. Well, yeah, I mean, it's more expensive than buying junk, but think about it. You save all that money in deodorant and toothpaste.
And you doing health visits.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of quality of life.
Right.
So, so there's that. Bowel movements are really odd, right? It's an odd thing in that, you'd eat and have a bowel movement. And you would eat, and a lot of people do this. They eat and maybe they don't have a bowel movement right away, but 2 hours later they have a bowel movement. And it's a very common thing. And my whole life, right? I was used to just having that schedule. Never thought once about it. Never thought about it. I thought, oh, this is the way life is, right? You just come into the world and this is what happens to you as you'd never think about it. Okay.
Right.
I have a bowel movement once every 2 days to 3 days.
Right.
And I've had it go as long as a week, or I'm sorry, 5 days. I've had it go as long as 5 days. And that's unusual.
Right.
Yeah, so your bowel movements are completely changed. And
if I recall, being you talked privately earlier about some of the maintenance on a bowel movement didn't require much.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different cleaning yourself after that.
It's almost like pooping clean, honestly.
Yeah, they call them like you wipe yourself, but it's called a ghost wipe, and there's nothing on the paper, and that doesn't always happen. Okay,
right.
Depends on how much fat you're eating in your diet, because then
right.
It's softer.
Right.
Let's put it that way. It's softer, and it just depends. If you're eating a lot of protein, then it's going to be a little more firm.
Right.
That's not the big thing for me. The big thing for me is that I'm not eating fiber, and you think, oh my God, this guy's going to have colon cancer next week. And so I'm not going to. I don't want to go into all the details of it right now. But when you really study up on, there's no clinical evidence. There's no evidence in the scientific literature that takes you back that fiber is actually beneficial in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't do anything. Your body doesn't process it. In fact, people who do keto, they're all like, oh yeah, look, it's in the fiber. So they know it's inert. The keto people know that it's inert, and they don't worry about the carbohydrates in the fiber, because we can't process it. We're not a ruminant type of animal. We don't have the gut anymore. Evolutionarily speaking, we lost that capability in our digestive system to be able to process that. So they go, we don't have to worry about it because we're just going to poop that out.
Right.
So so what happens is when you don't eat fiber, you don't have the bulk. You don't have to go all the time.
Right.
So here's the thing. My way of looking at it was this: if you ate a pound of food and you pass half a pound, right, in a single bowel movement, and you completely, void your bowels, right? Or you eat a pound of food and you only have 2 ounces that you need to void, right? Which is the healthier food?
I don't know. I mean, I would think however much your body is obtaining and using.
Right, exactly. Think about it. That your body went, oh, I can't use any of this, and it got rid of half of it. Okay.
Right.
So how much nutrition did you get out of it?
Probably not much.
Not exact. Well, you got half of
right.
Half. Or with this diet, you're producing such small quantities of waste, you can go for a long period of time before you need to go. So that's how I look at it, and that's sort of my way of having a mental model of why is this? Because now you have to understand, when you're starting from standard American diet, which is called the SAD diet, SAD, standard American diet.
Which has a bunch of meanings.
Right. When you start there and you start working your way and all these different changes, this doesn't all just happen overnight. I did this over like 6 months while studying and changing my diet constantly, trying to understand, trying to find the optimal path.
Right.
As you go from eating like everybody else to eating differently, these changes happen, and you're like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I haven't gone to the bathroom in X number of days. So then you start thinking about it. Well, I did eat all that food and I'm fine. I'm not constipated.
Right.
So I guess my body's using it. And this happened, over a long period of time. So there's a pattern there and you're fine. So you're like, well, my body must be using all of what I'm giving it. So imagine you eat newspaper for breakfast. That's what I used to joke that oatmeal is. Oatmeal, I might as well eat newspaper, because I just pour honey over it. You pour enough honey over it and I can eat newspaper. And that's all oatmeal felt to me. I'm just soaking it in. I'm heating it up, making it warm. I'm putting milk on it. And then the only way I can down this stuff, because it's like a paste. It reminds me of when we used to do like arts and crafts in school. So paper mache. right? So I thought, this is like newspaper. I'm like eating newspaper. Well, why can I eat newspaper? Because I pour a gallon of honey on it. And if you put enough honey on anything, you could eat just about anything. So I'm like, so imagine you're eating newspaper, right?
Right.
Okay, so your body can't use any of it. So you get a pound of newspaper, you're going to pass a pound of that newspaper out of you. So that was my realization.
I want to go to other body parts like your sleep, your energy levels, some of the other aspects you see.
Yeah. Okay. So the problem with attributing it solely to diet is that I did diet and exercise simultaneously. So if I was doing an experiment, right, I'd only change one variable at a time. So I knew that change, I don't know which. Okay. So I'm just, all I can say is that, I mean, I know that the bowel movements is totally diet.
Right.
But for sleeping better, waking up fresh, like even when I get 4 hours sleep,
you may have to allocate some of that to exercise and getting in shape.
Yeah, I attribute it. Yes, right. I would attribute the benefit coming from
totally get it. I totally get it.
Right. So I can't say it's one or the other.
No, let's move on from that then. So let's talk about, so my next question is sourcing, because you're telling me every meal you sit down and eat, can you run through a day first of
like what I eat?
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, so this morning I what did I eat? Oh, I had 5 egg yolks. Okay, now you look at eggs. The whites are all protein.
People are grossing out right now. Go ahead.
Right. Well, they're not. I didn't eat them raw. I cooked them. But the whites are all protein. Okay. And one thing I don't need is extra protein in my diet. And I never was a fan of the white anyway. Like I could take, but the yolks, man, that's the powerhouse of the egg. That's where like all the good, you've got cholesterol in there, and you've got all of the nutrients. It's got some protein.
Wait, hold on. I know what people are thinking as you're talking. They hear cholesterol and they immediately go negative. You want to talk about cholesterol real quick?
That's a big subject. Okay. But I can, we can get. The main thing about cholesterol is your brain is like 80 to 90%, somewhere around there. It's pretty high. So take all these numbers with a grain of salt. It's about I'm in the right ballpark, but I probably have the numbers off a little. So it's about 80% to 90% cholesterol, your whole brain.
Right.
Okay. So as you get older, we're getting older. As you get older, in fact, everyone is, but as we get old, when you get into the old range, you need more and more of it in your diet. Okay. Your liver makes most of it. And the bit of cholesterol, the serum cholesterol, right? That is cholesterol in your blood, is most of it comes from the liver. It's what the liver produces. There's a very, very small percentage of cholesterol that is diet related, actually.
But aren't you? So basically what you're saying is the egg yolk is the good cholesterol?
No. There's no such thing as good and bad cholesterol. There just isn't.
That's why do they tell me that when I get my blood test?
Because, so
sorry.
Let's start from the beginning. Okay, you're making me go back. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's talk about how we know what we know. We, the average person, okay? So how do we know?
Right.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Don't tell me, I know you know this. So think just for a minute, where did you learn that? Did you learn it in health class in a book? Did your doctor tell you that when you visited your doctor? Just think for a moment. We all have heard that. Where did it come from? Oh, my mom might have said it. Well, where did she hear it from? Right? So think about that for just a second. Okay. Now, it was written in the 1800s in Kellogg's book, right? He wrote it in there, and it became a thing from marketing. We all heard it through marketing, right? How many times have we heard that this particular cereal is part of a healthy, balanced breakfast? And it's true. That cereal is a part of a healthy, balanced breakfast. The worst part, okay? It's the most unhealthy part. It's the unhealthy part of a balanced breakfast, okay? Oh, So where we learned everything we know about nutrition is through somebody who told us something, right? And where did they learn it? Probably from the TV, probably from an ad they read in a
Saturday
magazine.
morning cartoons,
It's
dude.
exactly. So everything you think you know about nutrition, you got from a marketing company. Everything. Okay. And literally everything I thought, or you got it from a group like who tried to convince you to eat their way. Okay. I'm not trying to, by the way, I'm not trying to convince anybody to eat like this. Okay. Here's the thing. That's a problem. Okay. Now, and most of my life, I you know me, I'm Mr. Critical, right?
Yeah.
I'm very, somebody goes, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, really? I'm like looking that up on the internet and I'm like checking stuff, checking sources, right? I'm like, or it doesn't hit my logic. As mom used to say, used to bug me when she said that, but now her words are coming out of my mouth. It didn't hit my logic and I thought, well, I got to figure this out, right? Because that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Now, my whole life I've been that way. Nutrition, I've been a moron, a complete, absolute idiot. Okay. Why? Well, I thought about that. I thought, wow, why? Why was I so, like everything else in life, I questioned absolutely everything. Even when a mom would say something, I don't believe her, right? I'm not taking that at face value. But why with nutrition? Why? Well, I realized the reason being is that I just assumed, geez, we've been around for, millions of years on the planet. You think we'd know how to eat, right? You think people would know by now, right? What the healthy foods are and everything. And I just assumed, and that was a completely stupid mistake. Okay. And here's the, wait, let me finish. There's one more thing about that, right? So here's the thing. Then I started thinking, wait a minute. How did we get so far off track from what our great grandparents like knew and how they ate and, that path? And I realized, how many generations have we been off the farm? People used to live closer to the land for thousands of years. They knew about the crops. Think about, even if you go into the Bible, right? They worried about their crops and that
harvesting.
was a big deal. Right. And there are different festivals during that time. It was their whole lives were geared around food production.
Yeah.
Because, well, that's super important, right?
Right.
So what we have been off the farm, how many generations? 5, maybe 5, 6. I mean, that's where, and it's at that point, right? It's at that point where you don't understand where your food comes from, and what it takes to make food. Okay, we don't understand that. Okay, and that's where we went off track, and that's how we've gotten so far afield to where we're like, oh, okay, we just eat stuff. We don't think about it. We drive through the drive-through and we go and we get the food and they give us food, what we call food, and then we put it in our mouths and then we move on our merry way.
Right.
So that was the kind of like that's where I was, the whole thing. We don't know anything as a species. We don't know anything. I mean, scientists and there are people who have, like I've studied it now, but I didn't know. I went 50 more plus years being a complete idiot. Someone said to me in my 30s, "Oh yeah, bacon's bad for you." I'm like, "Huh? What? What's bad for me?" And they're like, "But bacon's bad for me. Bad for you." I'm like, "Oh, why?" And they go, "It'll clog your arteries and you'll have a heart attack." I'm like, "Ooh, I don't want that." Didn't our grandfather die of a heart attack? I'm like, "That ain't gonna be me." Cut bacon out on the spot, right? Now, how much research did I do? I don't even remember the person who told me. I did zippity-doo-dah. Some mouth breather tells me, "Oh, bacon's bad for me," and I'm an idiot. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm not going to eat it," right? You just hear what other people tell you, and you just go with it.
You take it as, we call that taking it as gospel.
Right, and that's because I just assumed people knew. I just assumed, like, how could we not know by this point, right?
No.
Right, and we don't.
All right, let me, because this is such a great topic, what we're talking about. Okay, so interesting. I'm probably making 2 videos out of this. Okay, so what I want to talk about in this first video before we go is I want to finish your daily eating.
Oh yeah, we can do
the next video we'll talk sourcing.
Yeah. So because I don't need protein. I have plenty of protein in my diet. So, and your body will down regulate the absorption of protein, very much like with diabetes, your body's down regulating insulin uptake, and your body will do the same thing. So I'm like, why am I eating this? Like, this is waste. So I just dumped the whites and I ate the yolks where all the nutrition.
That was 5. You said you do 5?
Yeah, I 5. I mean, what I don't know. I do.
You cook them? You scramble them and cook them, and
no. I like having them liquid. If you cook them, you're going to lose some of it, the potency of the. So I try to cook it as little as possible, but then I don't want it. I don't want to get sick from it, eating it raw. So I make sure that it's going to kill anything on the outside, and just like sunny side up. It's like a sunny side up yolk.
Yeah.
So I eat, and then I put it in a little bowl, and I just I salt it, and then I just chop it all up and eat it. A little bit of the white gets in there, so you have a little bit of bulk. So anyway, I ate that, and last night I ate a very large, that thick steak.
Wait, that's awfully far. Let me see that again.
I mean, it was that thick.
That's like the biggest steak I've ever seen.
And then it's like, well, no, you go into any store and you buy a chuck roast.
Okay.
And that's what I eat, right?
Really?
Inexpensive. Yeah, inexpensive. What, $6 a pound? Almost always, right? It's massive, and I don't need to eat prime rib or I don't even like filet mignon because there's not enough fat in it. Right. Ribeye. That's it. I don't have to eat that. I like it. It's great, but I'm not going to spend $15, $16 a pound. Are you kidding? There are parts of a chuck. I probably should never tell anybody this secret. There are parts of a chuck that are better. I know that are better than.
I hate when I do that.
Prime rib, right? They're better. I'm sorry. You could literally throw the other part away, which I still love. That you could throw that away and you would still cost you less than buying a ribeye. But anyway, so but Liz, my wife, looked at me when I put that on my plate. And came back from barbecue and boom, put it on she's like, "You're gonna eat that whole thing?" I go, "No." I go, that's probably 2 meals. She goes, "That might be 3 meals." I go, I doubt it. I go, I didn't eat all day. I hadn't eaten all day. Or I had like 2 pieces of bacon or something. I barely ate today. I had a few pieces of shrimp for lunch, and I was just busy, not hungry. And I'm like, I'm hungry now. And I had a piece left over about that big. And about
How do you cook it? How do you cook it?
Okay, so I defrost it, keep it in the freezer, defrost it, and then it goes salt on one side, flip it over, salt on the other side while the barbecue's getting hot, and then I one time over, black and blue basically. So yeah, it could be what some people would consider raw in the center, and you can eat raw. I mean,
wait, you just call it tartar.
Yeah, exactly. All carnivore animals eat raw, right? Yeah. And why is it problematic for us to eat raw?
Because our systems have probably changed over the years, probably.
Nope.
No?
Because we butcher. I mean, they're digging right into the animal. The animal they just killed the animal, and now they're digging into it. We're cutting and exposing that whole surface to the air. Even though they plastic wrap it, it's been exposed, right? So I want to cook it enough for 2 reasons. I want the flavor. I like the flavor. I don't want to cook it too much because that's no good. But I like the flavor. But I could literally just make sure that it's safe, right, and it's warm. I like it warm, right? I mean, at least when you kill the animal's warm. They are eating warm meat. So I like that, and I want to make sure that any bacteria that got on it as part of the cooking process, and then the butchering process, and then bringing it home and putting it in the fridge and all of that, had time for the bacteria to grow. This kills it. And that's why I don't worry about the inside being raw, because it's never been exposed. It's totally safe. So and there's something about when you eat, the more you cook your meat, the worse you feel eating it. There's something about beef too. In particular, I eat a lot of lamb. I eat a little bit of pork. Once in a great while, I'll
lamb's
eat chicken.
My favorite, dude. Lamb's my favorite.
Love lamb. Lamb, you can eat the fat of lamb, and it tastes good. Eat the fat of beef, it's like meh. Grass-fed beef fat tastes better, but there's so little of it. Right. So, but lamb is grass-fed, so it's very healthy, and because they won't eat what cows will eat, and you can eat, and the flavor of the fat is very good. So, I don't. At some point, I get what's called fat full. You can only eat so much fat, and you're like, okay, I'm full of fat, and then you eat the protein part of it. So that's, I cook it like that, and I try to keep it as rare or raw as
That
possible.
this is your dinner we're talking about,
makes,
right?
yes, last night's dinner. So that makes me feel the best when I eat. And every once in a great while, I'm like on my phone. It's night, and the barbecue's out there, and I'm like, it looks good, right? So I'm over here and I'm like doing something on my phone, and I look up, it's like flames are shooting out of I'm like, I run out there, and I'm like, I turn it over, and I'm like, that's overcooked. But it's so thick, it's not, it just cooks in a little more than I'd rather, and then the ends will get a little bit cooked. I'm like, all right, that's the flavor.
It's called burn ends, dude.
Right, that's the flavor, and this will be the nutrition in the center, right, where I didn't get too cooked.
So let me recap really quick, and correct me if I'm wrong. 4.5 years, you eat nothing. It's called the carnivore diet. Seems to be the popular name. You eat nothing but the animal or animal byproducts. Is that correct?
Yeah, animal, either animal. Yeah, it's animal or the animal byproducts, right?
So that includes chicken and fish.
Yeah, chicken, fish, shellfish, right? Because those are all animal products. Salt, because it's not plant.
Right.
And any of the meats.
Okay, and there is a Facebook group, right?
Yeah, well, there's more than one, but there's 2 zero carb Facebook groups. Okay. And then there's lots of
lots of us out there. Just for information.
People who want to try it. Most people do it not for health.
Right.
They do it to lose weight. Okay.
Okay. So I want to cover that, but not in this video. I want to health, and I want to talk about all the benefits of the diet. Okay. So it's health, and then weight loss. Excuse me, I'm choking. And then I want to talk about sourcing too.
Okay. So let's talk about health.
Not right now. Right now. I want to say
next time.
Next video, yeah.
Oh, so what do you want to talk about?
This running long, dude.
I get it.
If they're still watching this video right now, I'll be surprised.
So what do you want to talk about in this video now?
No, we're done right now. I'm gonna cut it right here, edit it, and then we'll record part 2. Me and you next weekend. We'll record it.